All right. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Kristen Stanton, and I am a career consultant in Dietrich College. I just wanted to first thank everybody for being here for today's webinar on strategies for coping with the changing career landscape due to COVID-19. We're going to get started. And I first just want to say, if you do have questions, I'm happy to take them as I'm presenting. So you can unmute yourself and ask a question. If you'd rather, you can type it into the chat box. And there will be time at the end of the presentation for a Q&A. So, it's also fine to save questions for the end. All right, we have a couple people who are still joining in. Hi, everybody. We're about to get started, and I'm actually going to turn off my video while I'm presenting because it's a little easier for me to go back and forth between the presentation and some other things that I'm going to show you. But again, if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt and just go ahead and ask, all right? All right, so one other thing, everybody can see my screen, hopefully. All right, so our agenda for today, hang on, just going to the chat. All right, so you can see my screen. Thank you for letting me know. What we're going to cover today is first what we know and also what we don't know as it relates to employer recruiting and how hiring practices have changed since this all started. We're also going to go through some general advice for job searching during the crisis, some tips for networking and for video interviewing. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a discussion of alternative plans for this summer in case you aren't able to do an internship or you don't have a job lined up yet. All right, so with employer recruiting, we're dealing with the unknown, right? The only thing we do know for sure is that the landscape is changing daily. We in the CPDC have been reaching out to our employer partners. We have been getting information from them, and we actually recently, last week, did a great webinar with some of our top partners about how their recruiting practices have changed and advice that they have for students. If you didn't catch that, I would definitely recommend going back and listening to the recording. And I actually wanted to show you where you can find that. So we have here on the CPDC homepage, we have this new coronavirus updates tab. And if you click on that, you can see that the recording for that webinar and that panel is right here. You can go back and listen to that. And we also have a lot of good FAQs and other information related to job searching and how things have changed in the last month. So I just wanted to make sure that you all know that this page is here. All right, so going back to our presentation, we know that most employers are planning to continue their internship programs, right? So this is good news. That said, many, if not most of them, are moving to remote. Unfortunately, some have had to cancel internships. Some employers have had to freeze hiring, and some are pushing start dates back. So that's both for internships and also possibly for full-time jobs. NACE, which is the National Association for Colleges and Employers, also did a large survey of employers throughout the country. And I can share some of those statistics with you. So according to the NACE survey, 30% of employers are planning to do virtual internships. 35% have planned to delay the start or reduce the time of their internship this summer. Slightly better news is that 65% have said that they are not rescinding full-time hires. And then for those of you who are in the class of 2021, 67% of employers are planning to recruit at the same level as they are for the class of 2020. So there is some good news in there, and I think in general, employers are doing everything they can to maintain hiring and to keep things as normal as they can for students who are planning to intern this summer. So where can you find information about who's hiring and who's not, right? So there's a lot out there, right? You can look, there are crowdsourced resources from GitHub. There's one from Candor Sheet, but do keep in mind that this information is crowdsourced, right? So it may not be correct. You may find information on some of these spreadsheets that are position specific rather than applying to the whole company. So keep that in mind, and really my advice to you would be to start with your consultant. So if you have questions about a specific company, ask your career consultant before relying on some of these resources. We do have access to the employer information from our own personal outreach, and we're happy to share that with you. Also, if you have a personal contact or a recruiter contact in the company, definitely go to them first before relying on something that you may be seeing on the internet. All right, and it's important now more than ever to be flexible. Employers are really still trying to figure everything out. And that means that offers may take longer to come in. It means that interviews may be delayed. It's taking longer to schedule people into things. And this is all normal right now. So it's really important to be patient, but it's also okay to continue demonstrating interest. So it's okay to reach out to recruiters and let them know that you're interested and that you're looking. Just keep in mind, if you don't get a response back, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested in you. It's just that there's a lot going on for recruiters and they're still unsure of things. So there's just a lot of moving pieces. That being said, don't stop applying, right? We have found that there are new jobs that are still being posted. There are jobs and internships being posted to Handshake. There are jobs being posted on LinkedIn, on Indeed. But that said, you know, we don't know what this environment is going to look like a few months from now. So layoffs are starting to roll through the economy. Job searching later this spring or summer may be more competitive, right? Because there are going to continue to be layoffs, there may be fewer job postings and more applicants. So really the time to apply is now. One piece of advice that I would have for you though is when you're searching for job postings, it's a really good idea to filter by the date that that job was posted. So it's probably not the best use of your time to apply to jobs that were posted before coronavirus, right? Because those are definitely more uncertain than positions that have been posted in, you know, late March, early April. So make sure you're using that filter and applying smartly. And so don't lose your focus, right? Really think about who those employers are that are still hiring. Ask your consultant. Lists can be found on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is using the hashtag #NowHiring. The Wall Street Journal has a list of companies who are still hiring, and as a student at CMU, you have a free subscription to that. I would also, you know, advise you to maybe think a little bit differently about the jobs and industries that you're applying to. So there are companies right now that are hiring, that are ramping up rather than contracting, thinking about healthcare, online delivery services. And, you know, maybe in January and February, that's not who you were thinking about applying to, but things have changed now. And so I think we need to apply some flexibility to our thinking about what types of jobs and internships we might want to do, right? So think about how you can transfer your skill set to an industry that is hiring, right? Rather than searching for specific job titles or specific firms, think about your transferable skills and really what you'd like to learn in that first year on the job or in your internship. Because what you're doing this year in 2020 doesn't have to be what you're doing 3 or 5 years from now. But I think it's important to take a moment to think about what your goals are, what you want to learn, and then how you can take that experience and transfer it into the job that you thought you might be doing before this whole virus, you know, came to be. And then I already talked about sorting jobs by the most recent dates. Any questions? I know I've said a lot this far, so I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions about what I've covered? Okay. So Since everybody is forced to work remotely now, you might also want to pursue opportunities that are specifically designed to be remote, right? Um, One example of this is a project-based or a freelance internship, which is called a micro internship. So a micro internship is a project-based experience for a real employer that you would get paid for. And this is all done virtually, right? So the advantages of this type of experience, one, you're getting paid. Two, you have an opportunity to really network with the employees in that company. And three, it might turn into something more, right? So if you do well on this project, perhaps you'll get another project. Maybe you'll even impress them enough that they'll want to consider you for a full-time job when they start hiring. And these are things that you can put on your resume. A slightly different type of experience is organized or managed through a company or website called Inside Sherpa. These are also remote project-based experiences for real companies, but the difference is that you're not getting paid for these. So this is more of a learning opportunity. It's an opportunity to work on a real case study for a company like Deloitte, for instance, where you're getting feedback from the company, you're learning what skills would be essential to do that job. It's also something you can put on your resume. It's not an internship and it's not paid. And if you have questions about either of these two types of experiences, let me know. I'm happy to talk to you more about them after the presentation. All right, so also consider maybe being proactive and proposing a virtual internship, right? So there are many small businesses and nonprofits out there that need help right now. So don't be shy about presenting yourself as a solutions provider rather than someone seeking an internship. So what I mean by that is that, many employers are trying to figure out a way to not have to cancel their summer internships. If you can tell them specifically what value or what service you can bring to the table, you might help them to figure out how they might be able to use you. Another idea is to reach out to your employer from last summer, right? So if you had a great internship last summer, there's a good chance that you can reach back out to that hiring manager or that recruiter and ask them if they have anything for you to do virtually this summer. I think employers are a lot more likely to want to work with students that they already know, students who are familiar with the company, students that they trust, that they know have a good work ethic, than to hire someone they've never met before for a virtual internship. So consider reaching back out to somebody that you've worked with in the past. All right, I'm just looking at a question in the chat. What would you recommend for students who are unsure of their career direction and we're planning to use the internship as exploration to test out their interests or skills to develop? Well, I think the same thing applies. I think if you're unsure about what you want to do, it's important to try to do something, right? So you're going to be able to test out your interests and your skills, even if it's in an experience that wasn't something you thought you might be doing. And what I tell students even before this all happened was, even if you have an internship or an experience that you didn't enjoy, that's still really valuable information to have, right? That lets you know what you don't want to do from now on. And you can definitely still take the skills that you used and that you learned and apply them to something else. All right, and then I have a handout of remote job resources, remote job boards that I'm happy to share with you if you're interested. Just type your Andrew ID into the chat and I can send that out after this presentation. But I'll also tell you that even just using Handshake, so I typed in remote as my keyword, and then I filtered the apply start date to be after March 20th. And just doing those two filters got me 300 remote jobs in Handshake. So they're out there and they're available to you. All right, and then of course, I have to advise you to use the CPDC. We are here, we're doing phone appointments, we're doing Zoom appointments, and they can all be scheduled through Handshake, just the same way that you scheduled appointments before. Most career consultants are also doing weekly drop-in hours through Zoom where you don't need an appointment. We're still hosting employers for virtual events under the events tab, and we're still doing virtual career fairs. So we had a couple earlier this month that were really successful. There is a UI UX virtual career fair coming up at the end of April. And these are things that we're going to continue to program in the next few months. You know, obviously I'm hoping, I think everybody's hoping that by September we can have an on-campus career fair, and that Encompass and TOC might be able to go, be able to take place in person, but realistically that may not be the case. So the virtual career fair, I think, is something to get familiar with now. We use a platform called Brazen, which is super easy to use. It's all chat based, so you don't even need to, like, you know, put on nice clothes for this. But it allows you to have chats with recruiters, ask questions, share your resume with them. So keep an eye out for these types of fairs. And then we have a lot of free resources available to you that are great to use virtually. Examples include VMock to do resume reviews, Career Shift for finding contacts, and we can even continue doing assessments. So if you were working on career exploration with your career consultant, they can do an online assessment, the Strong Interest Inventory, the MBTI. That's all, those are all online now, and we can go over those results with you over a Zoom appointment. Okay, so next, I really want to emphasize that the importance of networking right now more than ever. So I don't want to make a blanket statement that everybody has more time now, because I don't think that's the case, but I think a lot of people have a little bit more time now than they used to. And so this is a good time to reach out to people, to make connections, and to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is really as good as it can be. So do that first, and then work on getting some referrals. So thinking not just about recruiters, but also alumni who are maybe working in industries that, you know, when this crisis starts to recede, you'll want to jump into, or industries that are going to profit and be better off because of the crisis. So thinking about Amazon, Netflix, Zoom. I really think that recruiters will be more concerned than ever about wanting to avoid risky candidates. And the best way to sort of de-risk yourself is to get a referral from someone inside the company. So start building those relationships. There's a recruiter statistic somewhere out there that referred candidates are more than 10 times as likely to get a job. So really now is the time to reach out and ask people to connect. I think people are more likely to want to help students now, maybe even than they were before. So I'm going to show you a couple tools that you can use to reach out. I know a lot of you may be familiar with these already, but I'll just do a really quick demo of some of them. I'm going to show you the LinkedIn alumni tool, Career Shift, and then our new community platform. All right, so just popping out briefly here. So this is LinkedIn, and what I did was I typed Carnegie Mellon University here into the search bar. All right, if anyone can't see my screen, let me know. But what I'm going to do is just scroll down here to this alumni tab, and this is going to bring up all 92,000 CMU alumni who are active on LinkedIn. And then you can search these alumni by their title, by a keyword, by their company, and it'll bring up, you know, if I just, I'll type Google. I know we have a lot of Google alumni. Right, and then it's going to show me which Google alumni are in San Francisco, which are in Pittsburgh. And then here I can message them if I'm already a connection, or I can send a connection request and message them once they accept my request. Okay, so this is the LinkedIn alumni tool. We also have Career Shift, which is a great resource in Handshake. So going over here to Handshake, oh, okay. Sorry, let me authenticate again. All right, so in Handshake, if we go to the Career Center and then go to Resources, All right, so scrolling down to Career Shift. This is also a great place to search for jobs. I'm going to quickly show you how to search for contacts. So if you don't have an account, you'll want to create one using your Andrew ID. I do have an account. Hopefully it'll let me in. All right. Okay, so I'm going to come over to the Contacts tab, and I'm going to search. So this is nice because when you're connecting on LinkedIn, you kind of have to wait for somebody to accept your request, or you send a message and you're not sure if they've seen it. But with Career Shift, this will let you access most anybody's email address. So let's say I want to follow up with a recruiter. I'm just going to type in Duolingo, and then I'm going to search by position. And I'm going to type in recruiter, and then I'm going to see what happens. Okay, so now, oh, interesting. So it looks like Jisoo left and is now at Glossier. That doesn't happen very often. But Brittany is still here at Duolingo, and now I have her direct email address. She's probably not going to be thrilled that I'm using her as an example right now, but we can reach out to Brittany and send a polite email letting her know of our interest, maybe attaching a resume, and just asking about her hiring process and maybe how things have changed. Right, so this is Career Shift, and again, it's a great way to find direct email address either for alumni or for recruiters or for people in the company. All right, let me check out my chat. Right, so Paula, our marketing director, reminded me that while you're on LinkedIn exploring the alumni group, you should check out the CPDC's new LinkedIn page. And she put the link to that in the chat box. All right, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was CMU's new alumni platform. It's called Community, and it has replaced what was formerly the alumni directory. So this platform is meant to be a lot more interactive, so more like Facebook or LinkedIn than just a searchable directory. But do keep in mind that it just launched, and so some of the functionality and features are still being built out and developed. But if you go to the CMU community page, which is just community.cmu.edu, and then scroll down, you can create an account here using your Andrew ID, and that'll allow you to connect with faculty, alumni, participate in some of the chats that are going on, join groups. So I think right now there's a group, I know there's a Pittsburgh group, there's a professional development group, I believe there's a New York City group, and eventually the goal is for each college to have its own group. Okay, so this is something, another way for you to connect with alumni. Our office in the CPDC is also going to be partnering with the alumni office to develop and to present more opportunities for you all to connect with alumni through panels and other types of networking events this summer. So definitely stay tuned to messages from us about that. All right, I'm going to pause again because I went through a lot just to ask if there are any questions about any of those tools or resources. Okay. Okay, so you now know how to use the tools, but maybe you're not sure what to say. I did want to give you just a sample communication. I think, this is basically the same as it would be before the whole coronavirus, but I do think it's important to kind of acknowledge what's going on when you're reaching out to an alum or to someone you don't know. Maybe checking in to make sure that everybody's okay. And then introducing yourself, maybe talking about the connection you have, and then your ask. So, keep in mind that you want your ask in this initial message to be pretty small or to be manageable. So I don't recommend asking somebody to have an hour-long conversation, but maybe asking to connect for 5 to 10 minutes over the phone or by Zoom is something that a lot of people, won't be intimidated by. And then once you have that initial conversation, you can build on your relationship from there. Um, okay, so step 2, your outreach was successful. Now what do? You have an informational interview coming up. I think the most important thing is to just prepare, right? So make sure you have some questions prepared to ask that person so that you're not wasting anybody's time. Here are some examples of things you could talk about. Sharing your career path. I think in general, people do like to tell their own story. Asking specifically about the job, maybe asking about the hiring process at their company and how that hiring process might have changed since the pandemic started. And then also thinking about not just making connections, but really maintaining your network. So after you connect with somebody, definitely send a thank you note or an email. And maybe since more people are doing things over video, maybe you're going to send a thank you video. Maybe that's a different way to stand out. So you can talk about your professional interests and how your skills and experiences match the needs of that company. Maybe you talk about how you have the ability to work remotely and how you're familiar with the different technologies that you would need to do that. Just an idea. You certainly don't have to send a video. But do check in periodically and remember that the best relationships are the ones that are authentic, right? So instead of always asking your connections for something, think about what you might be able to share or how you might be able to help them in return. All right, so I'm switching gears now to talk about another big change since COVID-19 has been in the way that we're interviewing. And I think this trend started before the virus, but now is here. It's arrived and we're all doing it, and that's video interviewing. So if you're interviewing with a company now, it's gonna have to be over the phone or it's gonna have to be through a video platform. We have several resources available to you to help you practice. The first is called Big Interview. It can be found in that same resource tab in Handshake where Career Shift was. And actually the CPDC recently gave a workshop entirely devoted to video interviewing. I don't think it's on our website yet, but it will be. I also have that workshop in a Google Drive, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who wants to practice or get to know that resource before we're able to post it on the website. You can also schedule a mock interview with your career consultant. These mock interviews over Zoom are going to be just like the video interviews you're going to do with the recruiter. So it's a great way to practice. And then LinkedIn has a new video interview feature. I have not played around with this a lot yet, but I did read about it, and so it's something you may want to check out as well. And then just some other tips to keep in mind when you're practicing the video interview. One is don't assume that video body language is the same as in-person body language. And what I mean by that is that on a flat screen, people tend to appear flat, right? Big news. And I noticed this with myself when I've been talking to students, when I happen to catch a glimpse of my own image, I feel like I look really depressed, and I'm actually not feeling that depressed. But I think you need to project extra energy and extra enthusiasm when you're on a video chat, right? And also practice talking to that camera. I think people have a tendency to look down or to look at their own image on Zoom. So you really have to practice looking and making eye contact with the camera. I've heard of people getting those like googly eye stickers and sticking them on the camera just to force you to look there, but it's something worth practicing. The Big Interview resource that we have uses your webcam to record you. So it'll feed you questions and then record your response and play it back to you so that you can actually see how you look when you're answering these questions. Also keep in mind that video time is not the same as in-person time. Your interviewer is probably also distracted, right? They may have messages popping up on their screen. They may be looking at emails. And so it's even more important to stick to your important points and to be concise in your answers. One technique that we use as consultants to coach students is called the STAR method. And I'm not going to go into it in detail here, but we're happy to help anybody practice that. It stands for situation, task, action, result, and it's really just a nice framework for you to use when you're structuring your answers. And it kind of helps you keep yourself on task and not go off on a lot of crazy tangents. And then thirdly, don't forget that when you're doing a video interview, you have all these visuals kind of right there at your disposal. And I think that generally people are better at processing visual information than auditory information. And so thinking about what you might be able to show your interviewer could really help you stand out. So maybe you have an online portfolio of projects, but if not, maybe you have a presentation that you gave in class that you could refer to. So just kind of think about that. I definitely would recommend practicing if you're going to plan to share. Make sure you're comfortable sharing your screen, but think about how using visuals might be able to enhance your interview. All right, and then lastly, we wanted to talk a little bit about this summer. I know that for some of you, it's not going to be possible to get an internship and you may not have your full-time job yet. So you'll need a plan B or maybe a C or maybe a D. But I do want to say before we get into all this that if you don't have an internship, employers will understand. We've heard from many employers that they recognize that this is an anomaly, right? This is a stressful time, and it's a stressful time for everybody. You're in the same boat as millions of students across the country and across the world, right? So it's okay if you do not have an internship. We also are all dealing with different challenges. So for some of us, you may be having physical health challenges, mental health challenges. You may need to take care of a family member this summer, and employers will get that too. So don't feel like you have to do something. But I will say that if you can, I think that it's a good idea to try to do something. When you're interviewing 6 months from now and you're looking to talk about this summer, I think that employers will really appreciate students who have been able to make the best of a bad situation. And there are different ways of doing that. Some suggestions that we have for you. One is to think about what skills you might want to develop. Maybe you want to learn a programming language. Maybe you want to become a social media marketing expert. There are classes both through CMU and also free and inexpensive resources online that can help you to do this. LinkedIn Learning is one example. If you want to learn a second language, obviously Duolingo, but there are lots of other online language courses that are offering free classes to students this summer. I think that volunteer work will be looked on especially favorably now, and there are certainly lots of organizations in your community that could use help. So think about how you might want to contribute to them. Another one is online tutoring. So high school students, middle school students, even elementary school students have all been out of school for at least a month and are going to continue to be out of school. I think that many students are going to fall behind right now, which means that there's going to be more of an opportunity to help those students online. And so if you consider yourself to be an expert in math or in English or science, consider online tutoring. Oftentimes the pay is also really good for those positions. And I have a link in the presentation to a couple sites where you can go to search for those positions. Also think about your own personal projects. Maybe you have, you've been trying to develop a new application and now's the perfect time to finish it. Maybe you've been wanting to get all of your work together into an online portfolio but haven't had the time. You can definitely update your resume, your cover letter, your elevator pitch so that you're ready to go come fall. Even thinking about cleaning up your social media accounts. So making sure that the ones you don't want recruiters to see are private, and making sure the ones that they will see really accurately reflect your personal brand and your voice. Another option might be research, right? So a lot of labs are closed now. I think all labs are closed now, and we're not sure what that's going to look like a few months from now, but it definitely doesn't hurt to do your own research or even to reach out to professors to ask what type of research they're able to do remotely and whether you might be able to help. All right, so that really brings us to the end of the plan presentation. As I said, I do have 2 handouts that I wanted to share with you if you're interested. One is a list of remote job boards and job resources. The second is a list of virtual resources that you can access through the CPDC. So if you'd like to receive either of those, just put your Andrew ID into the chat and I'll be happy to send them. I'll probably also attach them to the into Handshake where you registered for the webinar. And I'll also have the slides up in Handshake as well. All right, so I'll just check out the chat to see if there are any questions. Yes, the presentation slides will be posted to Handshake. All right. Anyone else? If you want to unmute yourself and just ask a question, please do. If not, I just want to say again, thanks for joining us. This has been a sort of high-level presentation touching on a lot of different things. But again, I can't emphasize enough that your career consultants are working full-time right now, and we are happy to help you and to go into a deeper dive on any of these topics with you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right, guys. Well, thanks again. Hang in there. Good luck and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
All right.